And we're going to the 2 of 2 step, which is implement an advanced SEO analysis tool. I have no idea what that's going to look like.
Okay, I'll be in for a surprise. Does it also do things like logins and allow you to create users as well? I think that would be a question that comes up.
Yeah, you can. You can go back and forth. I tried authentication and registration this weekend. It knows how to make databases to store user accounts to register. Sometimes it hangs up on that, so you have to go in a bit of circles, but it's completely possible to do. It's just a matter of wording it properly. Sometimes, if you word something vaguely, you don't get exactly what you're looking for.
Gotcha. And it can also allow the user to store all the information and to create new accounts. It can do all of that. Wow.
Yes, it can create a whole database.
Wow.
So if you go to the bottom here, PostgreSQL, it's built into Replit. So it can set up a database within Replit itself that stores everything.
Bubble's going down.
I mean, Bubble and Flutterflow, their days are numbered.
Wow. Crazy. Okay, so can you generate a blog post now with the keyword suggestion? I don't see the keyword suggestions.
So we're going to scroll down and see if there we go. SEO improvement suggestions.
That's super cool.
So for the purpose of time, nice picture.
Let's go on to the next.
You know what? We'll say yes. Just so we can kind of get to the end of this one, and the one thing I really want to do before we sign off on this one is we need that loading bar. I will not leave without that loading bar.
Okay, let's do that.
We need a loading bar when we click generate blog post to know the progress of the creation of it. So now it says it's done. So if you do this and change it to watching YouTube all day, and you make it formal, and you make it French.
Let's see. I don't see a loading bar.
That's no bueno. I'll try it again. Unless it's a very small, maybe I should refresh possibly. Try it again. Oh, there we go.
Oh. Has a loading bar. Holy. Oh my god. That is insane.
Yeah, that means so. Also, it's really good. This is all happening in front of you guys. So, like, if you make a change, if for some reason nothing's changed, click this refresh button on the top left. And that might be the little thing that's off.
That's insane. Wow. Wow. Like, you literally just had to tell it what to do, and it does it.
Yeah. The final test is making sure that when it finishes, it actually shows up. There we go. Wow. Amazing.
Wow.
There we go.
Wow.
Okay, now I'm at peace with this one. So we can try the last one. And you said, Helena, you want to try something different, not the last one we picked. You had a different idea.
Yeah, let's just deploy this so we can get a URL for this for other people to try if they wanted to.
Sure.
Again, guys, just don't abuse a Mark's API key, or else we will have to shut this down. So you just have to go to the deployment, right?
Yep. And then again,
and
choose auto scale, set up deployment, approve, and then we're going to go down here and then call this blog post creator, and then we'll click deploy. And then again, it'll take a couple minutes, and then we'll have a link, and then you're good.
So if I wanted to use this on my own domain, where would I go to do that?
I will show you as soon as it's done, because that's where it'll give you the option. When you click on that lock icon, it'll give you the option to start entering your own domain.
Okay. So just wait a second for that to show up.
Yep.
So now, even people who haven't studied comp sci in school can now create apps.
Yeah, pretty much. So
can you even like Stripe integrations to start charging money for your apps and stuff too?
I tried it on the weekend. It took a bit of back and forth, and I had to give an example of like how to make the call from Perplexity, but it was eventually able to get it.
Okay, so it just takes a bit of back and forth to do it, but that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah. So
All right.
back to your question. If you want to go to settings, then you'll see this little link a domain. You can click on this, and this is where you can start the process of having your domain link be the primary app link.
And then you just change the DNS record with your
Exactly.
domain provider and
All that fun.
got it. And you can make this Replit app into like multiple pages too, right? Like you could do like first page is for something like this, you can even use it as a lead magnet. Like the first page will be name and email, collect that, and then they get access to the tool, right?
Yeah, actually.
It's a great lead.
Yeah, real quick. If you go to Replit, literally the number one thing that they tell you that you can make is a waitlist generator. So this is built in, it comes with a database that stores everyone's names. So when it comes to lead magnet, it's doable out of the box. And if you want to know everything else that they're confident on making, click on View More, and you'll see local landmarks app, waitlist website, link in bio, AI chat bot, like actual chat bot you can create on a screen, and then like a smart form and some form of visualizer here.
Wow. Kind of reminds me of what Neil Patel did. So he made an SEO tool where people can just put in their name and email and gave it for free. And that was his lead gen. Like software is one of the best lead gen magnets out there. And then what he did behind the scenes is look through who's using his tool, and then he would scrape off the top 1% and then convert them into clients for his SEO agency. So it kind of reminds me of that. But now you can do it so much faster because when he was doing that, software was still extremely expensive.
Right.
But now you can do it such a small period of time. Everyone should be doing this for their lead gen.
Yeah.
So, Mark, instead of doing the third app as the interview box like we originally were thinking, I think it's just quite similar to the SEO one that we just did. So why don't we show you something a bit more complex? Let's try to connect the front end of the Replit agent to a make.com automation and get it to do something. So here, what we have set up is a very simple scraper. So I have a webhook here, which is a scraping webhook, and basically the person can put in an URL and then have an HTTP request, which will take the website that was just scraped from the webhook. We still have to fill in the URL part. And then lastly, it's going to go into a ChatGPT module and summarize what that company does. So it's a very simple scraper. You can also go to the text parser here, add in a regular expression to scrape things like their phone number or their email address. So you can really get as fancy as you want here. You can scrape that company's information, then write a cold email to them that's personalized to them. So the use cases here are really limitless. So we're just going to keep it simple in this example and just summarize what the company does, though. Okay?
Yep, let's do it. All right, so for this one, I'm going to do something a bit different. So if you've ever used ChatGPT and use something called custom actions, you get what's called a schema that basically just explains what this app does, and it has the webhook that Helena just created. So we're going to include this in the description below. You can use this as your mini little cheat code here. And pretty much what it looks like, if I zoom in just a tad, is you have the name of what it is, so the company information API, you have the webhook that we just created, and then in this case I'm telling it the main method is going to get company summary, and this is all generated by ChatGPT. I'm not that smart to actually make this on a short notice. So all I'm going to do is, I'm going to close this, I'm going to upload it, I'm going to attach it here, and I'm going to say, create a simple web page that allows me to enter a URL and then send that URL to make using the webhook in the schema attached, and then display the response from the make automation on the page after clicking a button called scrape me. And then we'll click continue, and then I have no idea if this is going to work in one shot or not work at all, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah. Well, it's good that we're like showing it live step by step, and we'll see that this is all the back and forth that we had to do with the AI to actually get it working. And I think that's very beneficial to show that, and that it's not like one prompt and you're done. Not yet. I think we're gonna get there soon, but right now it's still a few prompts to get there.
Yeah. Sometimes it could take 100 depending on what you're trying to build, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, on average, between 5 to 10 is decent to build a prototype of most mini apps.
But if you think about it, 5 to 10 prompts to build a web app, and I think for anyone watching that's ever attempted to build a web app knows that is an exponential improvement. Like I've built a few apps, I don't know, like half a dozen on Bubble before. It took weeks to build one, and that was like an exponential breakthrough, because before that it was like you needed a team of developers, like 10 of people, and 6 months to build any kind of apps to start with. So it just shows how quickly technology is evolving.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't even talked about is we've been relying on this chat solely to actually build this app. End of the day, it's actually creating all these files, right? So if you know where, I don't know, the web page lives, HTML or the CSS, you can go to those files, put them into ChatGPT, and expedite the process by telling it, hey, make this blue, make this red. So all the assets are made here. This just helps you get those assets fast.
Right. And I want to add here, you can even take that code into Cursor and ask Cursor to explain what those codes mean.
One thing that I was processing that I looked at was it says for some reason the webhook's EU. I don't know if this is a placeholder and it has some form of like secrets tab, which usually does. But I don't see anything here. So if it doesn't work, then that tells me that we need to correct that. So sometimes also when you're troubleshooting, it's helpful to go through the progress bar and see what it did, because maybe it missed something.
Right.
So if I get an error, okay, so see here, not found URL. And okay, so that's why it's good to look at it while it's actually generating. We need...
Right, because you...
I'm just curious. Because it gave me the exact same error again. Okay, so it says accepted, we're making progress. So, we're making progress. Did you get any history on your end? Because that tells me that you got a ping.
Okay, let's check that. Check that.
Also, I just realized something.
What?
I
got a ping.
I realized something. You don't have a webhook at the end of your automation, so I get no response.
Oh, okay. So now let's reset up our
So do you wanna?
our automation.
Yeah. How do you wanna go through this?
Yeah.
I guess let's make sure it works, and then we'll go through everything we did to get there.
Okay, I'm gonna add in the webhook response in the meantime.
Okay. It did, yeah. Oh, so did you make the change?
Yeah. Yeah, I added it in the response.
Interesting. So now I'm getting a 500 error. That's a make error.
Let me see what the error is. Oh, I set the GPT tokens to 500 and there wasn't enough context.
Is johntheplumber.ca that crazy, bro? Damn. I guess there is quite a bit of text.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do a text parser in the middle.
Okay.
HTML text to scrape out all of the extra HTML code, because like all of that is taking out the context window.
Okay, we're back.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it's like saying like it's going beyond the context window.
Yeah.
Then I'm just gonna do the text and increase the maximum tokens. Okay, now do it. Should be okay now.
I'll go back to the old one. Oh, man, I hope this works. Yes, well done.
Yes! You finished it though, bro.
I'm happy. We made progress.
Okay, so we made a make automation here, and what this make automation does is that it's a webhook. It's going to listen for a URL, and it's going to then scrape that URL, and then we're going to use ChatGPT to summarize what that business does, and then return the result. And we want to now connect this make.com automation to a Replit agent on the front end. Now we can have a front end for all of your automations, and you can have a working app within just a couple of hours. So again, just to walk you through what this is doing. So first we have this webhook, right? This webhook is going to listen from Replit. So whenever someone enters in a URL from Replit, it's going to call this webhook, and this webhook is going to be triggered. The way that I like to explain what a webhook is to people looking at it for the first time is kind of like, if let's say you order something on Amazon, you're not going to sit by your door for the next 2 days until that delivery driver comes and drops off your mail. You're just going to go about your day, and you're going to go to the door when your doorbell is rang by the delivery person, right? The same thing here. Basically, the webhook is kind of like the doorbell to your software application. It's only when that webhook is called, when something triggers this webhook, then the rest of this automation will run. So then when this webhook is triggered, we're going to use this HTTP request to call the URL that the user has. And then we're going to use a text parser, so you can get the text parser here at the bottom. And I use the HTML to text parser. And this will scrape out all of the HTML code from the website and just return the text to us. And then I use the ChatGPT module, and I just summarize what this company does. You can easily replace this with write a cold outreach email to this person. You could also add in another text parser here for match patterns to scrape out any email addresses or phone numbers on that web page. So really, like the possibilities here are endless. You don't even have to do a scraper. So you can connect it to any automation you want here, but we just want to show you the breadth of what this technology can do here. And then lastly, after we got the summary here, I just did a webhook response to send the results, so what we wrote in our summary here, back into the webhook so that it can be displayed in our Replit agent webhook. So automation does.
The make automation, maybe we didn't parse out the URL properly, so that's all taken care of now. And my initial prompt was
we ran into a few things getting the webhook to work, and then determine the data structure for the webhook going back and forth. So when you start using multiple applications, then there's more variables at play. You have to figure out is the error on the make automation side or is it on the Replit side? So anyway, Mark, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so again, this was our prompt. We'll include it down in the description below. And I gave it the webhook. After we went back and forth, we were getting some trouble that Helena just went through how we managed to mitigate it. And every time I got an error, I would basically screenshot that error and give it back to it. When you get something like a 400 and it says client error, that usually means that it's on the make end. It's not on the Replit end. It's not on the web app end. So even those clues, even if you're not a coder, if it says client, that means the other side. So we just kept sending those screenshots of those errors until we finally got this message that said accepted. And then we knew, okay, it's probably a good sign. So now we're at the final stage where if we start using an actual URL, like John the Plumber is getting free coverage here, if we take this and we throw it into the scraper and we click on Scrape Me, this should be kicking off the webhook in Mate.
Yeah.
And it comes back with a summary of this entire site as to what they do. And you can see this is a pretty beefy site, and all we're using behind the scenes is GP4O Mini to actually come up with this.
Ain't that cool? Another thing I just want to mention is that when we were first trying to create this scraper, it kept on hallucinating and putting in a random webhook for the make automation. So just watch out for those hallucinations, and when you see it happening, then correct it as well.
Yeah. So when you go in progress, when you're first watching this, obviously it's magical, but as you're watching it, you look to see what are the actual variables and settings. So you can see here, originally it made it like an EU make.com link with no ID.
And then we had to enter in another prompt saying, hey, you hallucinated this webhook. Put in this webhook, and we entered in the exact webhook that was from make.com too.
Yeah, what's super cool about the progress tab is you can see the different changes that happened with all the back and forth. So you can see when I actually took a screenshot, you can see when we gave it the right make webhook, what it did, to override what it did. So you can use this as your log to see what it's done. Now, this works, and obviously what you could do to build on it is you could create this so now it takes 10 different URLs and scrapes all of them at the same time. Maybe it looks for phone numbers, maybe it looks for emails. So you can keep building on this. And the idea of showing you guys Replit Agent is that you can start really upskilling yourself and tinkering over hours and building something pretty robust.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you so much. This has been so insightful, helpful, and such a game changer. One of the best, most mind-blowing tools I have seen in a very long time.
Good.
And I hope everyone watching this will go and try it out. It's going to really help your business. There's so many use cases, as we discussed throughout this whole training. You can use it as a lead magnet. You can use it as internal tools that can help you speed up your processes. The possibilities are just literally endless, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys want more applications, let us know in the comments below. We're happy to hop back on and crank these out and play effective if we need to.
Sounds good. All right. See you guys next time.
Imagine being able to create $1 million app using only AI without writing one single line of code and getting it production ready in less than an hour. This is a challenge that me and my friend Mark will undertake today. You will watch us recreate one of the most popular AI tools called Code.com, and we're going to be using a groundbreaking new tool called Bolt.new. This is a new tool that has just launched, which allows you to create software from only prompts. We're going to be covering how to use this tool, and by the way, you can get started for free. I'll include a link below, and this video is not sponsored. And we'll also go through the nuances of this tool and how you can prompt it better to get this software builder to build exactly what you are looking for. We'll also go through the pitfalls that we have experienced throughout the way so you can watch this entire journey. Now, I think everyone today should be getting into software. It is such a lucrative field because it allows you to generate recurring revenue. So make sure you watch this entire video in its entirety, and I hope you get a lot of value out of it. And let me know in the comment section below what kind of software you're looking to build. Also, if you're looking to get started in AI, please make sure you sign up for my free course as well. With that being said, let's dive into today's tutorial.
Right now, this whole space of building full stack web applications from just a prompt is really blowing up, and it's heating up in terms of competition. So for us, that's a good thing. Replit Agent is still innovating, but on the side, around a month ago, really Bolt.new came on the horizon because it uses frameworks that Replit doesn't use. So if you go back to the video that we filmed together around a month ago, Replit use things like Flask to actually deploy apps. And with Flask, you're always limited in terms of how pretty, how functional that front end can be. Bolt allows you to deploy on things like React and uses TypeScript. So if you're not familiar with what those are, it just helps you build more fully functional web applications that are not as limited or could actually be production ready from a SaaS perspective. So that's the real difference between Bolt and Replit. Probably 6 to 8 months from now, all of them will do the same thing. But for now, each one's focusing on a different range of exercises here. So the way Bolt works is you write a prompt, and typically, I'm going to show you a cheat sheet just for the audience to better gauge how to use it. Your first prompt is the most important prompt. You lay the foundation for what your goal is on what you want to actually build, how you want to build it, and if you can give it a bit of a cheat sheet, because just like Replit Agent, if you remember, sometimes it doesn't know how to implement the latest version of OpenAI. Maybe it doesn't have access to that training. So giving it a little snippet of a cheat sheet of, hey, this is how you implement it, by the way, is also helpful in conjunction with kind of laying out your vision. So in terms of a little cheat sheet on how to really use it here, so if I just pull this up, like I said, the first prompt to use, very similar, if you remember, to Replit Agent, is make or break. If you start wrong, then typically everything just gets built on a poor foundation, so that's not helpful. The next thing is, if you hit a wall, again, similar to the Replit Agent, you can always roll back to a previous version where, let's say, your web application was working, or at least you were in the good progress stage before things went awry. And then if things get really quote-unquote bad, meaning no matter what you do, no matter how many times you say fix it, it doesn't actually fix it, I just start a brand new chat, learning from what I just experienced, and I just try to synthesize and be more proactive about my next first prompt. So there's a couple different ways to go about this because this is imperfect, end of the day. And in terms of the code snippets, like I said, if you can use something like Perplexity, even if you don't have any coding background, and you said, how do you call OpenAI through an API? It'll give you a small snippet by searching their documentation. You can take that snippet and use it as a part of your prompt. So even if you don't know how to access Google Maps API, even if you don't know how to access Anthropic API, you can just ask Perplexity, take that little snippet, and then use that as your jumpstart. And then the last thing here is you can, so one thing that Bolt.new doesn't really do intuitively that Replit did is it doesn't take screenshots of its UI or its errors. It's only looking at its code base at all times. So sometimes when it's not realizing it has an error, I screenshot what's happening and I paste it in the chat to tell it, hey, I need you to take a look at this. This is what I see on the front end. Fix it. All right, so that's the actual cheat sheet. So what we're going to try to build, you and I, is this application called Poe. And if you haven't used Poe before, the short and long of it is the fact that you can use multiple large language models, not just ChatGPT, not just OpenAI, to have conversations with different LLMs to see how they actually behave depending on the prompt. So if I say something like, and I go to more here, if I want to go and start a conversation with GPT-4o and I say, hey, tell me a joke. And I zoom in here, there we go. So it's going to tell me a joke. It gives me the option to resend that same prompt to, let's say, Claude and see how it would answer that same question. So it lets you bounce around between different large language models, which not only helps you understand, how will this same prompt behave in all these models, but you can have an entire conversation and be flexible. So if you want to do, I don't know, an email, you can just use Claude. And if you want to write a project brief, you can switch and use GPT-4o. So you can use the best tool for the best job, which we think is a pretty good experience.
Yeah, so Poe basically it's like a consolidator of all of the different language models, and you can just switch between and choose which one you want to use.
Exactly. So how we're going to attempt to build it is there is a service that exists called Open Router.
Okay.
So Open Router has an API that's honestly very easy to use that allows you to switch dynamically between different LLMs. So if we go down here, we go to Browse, you'll see it has access via API to all of these models at once, which is a huge advantage for you because typically you'd have to go to OpenAI's documentation, look up how to call their API, then go to Anthropic's documentation and figure out how to call Claude. And then the same thing for Llama, same thing for every single LLM. So that would be a headache for you to implement that scale. Whereas OpenRouter acts as literally a router that lets you access all of these services, but through one API key and through one request.
Okay.
So all we need here as a prerequisite is what I did is I just put a credit for $5 on my account. And when you go to here, your profile, and you go to keys, then you can create your key, and this is all you'll need to actually access all these, other than adding credits, which in this case, I just loaded $5. And honestly, it'll last for at least 50 to 100 messages, depending on which LLM you're choosing and which time. So, not much to be able to experiment.
So basically, OpenRouter, instead of you having to write all the APIs for, reading through all the documentation and writing API schemas for all of the different LLMs, it already did it for you, and you just choose which one you want to do. It's kind of like Calm, but except only specifically for large language models.
Yeah, so like if you want to go down that route of Make.com, it's literally that green router that you use in Make.com. This is that as a project.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So in terms of how to implement it, again, I would make this code agnostic. There's only really like a couple ways you get started, but I'm gonna act like I don't know anything about this framework, and I'll put myself in the shoes of someone who has never used this before. So what I'm gonna say is, before we even go to bolt.new, like I said, it's really helpful to give a cheat sheet. So I'll say, I want to implement Open Router API in a web application so that I can dynamically call different models. I want to be able to call OpenAI GPT-4o, OpenAI GPT-4o Mini, Llama 3.1, let's say Claude 3.5, Sonnet, and a Mistral model, and Grok. How would I implement this via code? So I'm going to click on Pro just so I can have that extra level of intelligence while searching the internet. And I'll click this. And the idea is, if it's doing its job properly, it should be smart enough to go to the OpenRouter documentation that I just showed you here, and then not only just verbatim extract and spit it back, but actually tell us exactly how to implement it.
Okay, I think I did that in this case. Like, it's even got the OpenRouter API key, so it's looking up in the right place.
Exactly. So here it's telling us this is what you need for setup. And again, we need that API key here. So when you provide this to bolt.new, you want to ideally give your API key, and it'll set it up for you.
Okay.
And then it'll tell you how to call the different available models. So it was smart enough to go to their models page, and then basically look up the names. So if you can see here, we go back and we pull this next to this. So we go to Claude 3 Sonnet, and we paste here. You'll see it's right here, Claude 3 Sonnet. So it should have all of those different names properly identified. So we put Mistral here. And the reason why I'm checking this right now is if we don't figure this out now, then we'll get an error later. But that one, for example, didn't exist, so it didn't find the right name. So I'm going to keep that there, and we'll deal with that later in Bolt.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start this conversation in Bolt here. And the last thing I'll do is I'm going to generate a key, a throwaway key here. So I'm going to go to keys, and then I'm going to delete this as soon as we finish filming. I'm going to say test. I'm going to click create, and then I'm just going to keep this handy. And now we're going to bolt.new, and we'll start this journey. So, so you can say, I want to build an application that lets me chat with multiple large language models. I want to be able to select from a few different models that when I click on will let me send that message to that specific LLM while allowing me to have a continuous conversation throughout. I want to use the Open Router API. Here's some documentation for you to reference. So in this case, this is where I give it that cheat sheet. So I'm going to call it basic setup. So you can see here the workflow that I'm doing to try to make my life easier.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you just copy that code directly from Open Router versus going through the extra step of putting it through Perplexity?
So in this case, I could do that, but I want to put myself in the shoes of someone who doesn't even know that there's docs to reference to begin with. So how would you go about this at all?
Got it.
And also, when you put in Perplexity, and I'm telling you my intention that I want to choose multiple models, technically, if you go to the documentation in Open Router, it doesn't tell you how to do that out of the box. This is how to call one API for one route. But it's not showing you how to do models, multiple models. So Perplexity will synthesize from all the documentation how you would call multiple models.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. In this case, I'm going to take this now. I'm going to say this is how you select models. Okay, and then if I go back down here, I think to create a class to handle API calls. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily necessary, but I'll just take this.
Okay.
I'll say full implementation, whatever. And lastly, I'll say here's my API key, just so you can embed it from the beginning. I don't have to worry about it not working later. I mean, not knowing why it's not working, it's because there's no API key. So.
Okay, and that was the API key from
Open Router.
Okay.
That's correct. So, 99% that whatever this is going to generate is not going to be correct the first time. So we're going to have to iterate.
Okay, and then this structure of the code was what you just showed in the slides, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so in the slides, for each thing, you might need different levels of the cheat sheet. So if you're calling like OpenAI, showing one example from their documentation could be enough for it to know because it might be familiar with OpenAI. But with something more obscure like Open Router, that might be a bit trickier.
Understood.
So we'll hit this, and then it's going to pull up a code base here to actually try to build this from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see here, it's writing, it's copy pasting that code I gave it to begin with, so at least I know that it's taking my input into account.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing while this is loading is there's a little button here on the bottom left. This will help you make a better prompt if you don't know how to prompt it correctly when you're saying what's wrong. So if you say the interface is not loading or this is broken, you can use this button they've created once you start typing to create a better version of that prompt to increase the likelihood that it understands what the issue is.
That's really cool that they even have an enhanced prompt. Like that's one thing that this is different from something like Replit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you first start using Bolt, you won't get anything like a blank screen. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
At least right now we're starting from somewhere. So first thing I want to do is, does it work? If I click on GPT-4 Turbo,
Yeah.
click high, I'm guessing this won't work, but we'll see. Oh, interesting. Okay, so
It's working for months. And that was like only, what, 5 minutes? Oh my god.
now, one thing that immediately jumps out to me that there's going to be an error is switching LLMs. So there's no such thing as GPT-4 Turbo Mini. There's only GPT-4 Mini. So let me try it. So, hello. Okay, so now my next question will be, what is it referencing as GPT-4 Turbo Mini? So if I click on code here and I go down, again, I'm going to act like all this is gibberish. I want to see what it's calling GPT-4 Mini. So
It's calling 4.0 Mini, just call it Turbo Mini instead of Mini. It looks like.
exactly. So it seems like it's actually doing the right thing, but it's labeling it the wrong way.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I'm cool with that because that's just aesthetic. Now let's try something that before, if you remember, it didn't look like it had the right model from the documentation.
Okay.
So hi.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, you know, it just clicked to me, like, with Open Router, you can have, like, one API key, and it works for all the models.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's beautiful.
Oh, jeez. I know it's fun, but it just clicked.
You gotta see it sometimes. So when I clicked on Mr. Large, if you remember from the documentation, if you go to models,
Yeah.
there is no large, Mistral large. Slash, like, at least when it goes to here, it didn't call in the right way. Go back to complexity, and you go to here, Mistral slash Mistral large.
And it's not large.
No, so look, it says Mistral slash Mistral large. It's actually Mistral AI slash Mistral large.
Got it.
So that's why it didn't work, and that's why I knew that error was going to pop up because it didn't actually find it the right way. So before I give it feedback, I'm going to just start typing the feedback. And what's cool about Bolt is that it knows it's made an error. So you have to tell it. So it can literally see here that it had an error streaming that response. So I'm going to say, these models are not configured correctly. Mistral large should be this. Okay? Okay, so now before I keep going, I just want to test whether Grok is working. So I'll just say hi. Okay, I got an error again. So that tells me that Grok is also not being properly mentioned or referenced. So I'm going to go to Grok here. Okay, I'm going to go to here. I'm going to take that. I'm going to say Grok 1 should be this. And then let's see what else can we test here. Hi. Okay. Yeah, llama also broken. So let's do llama. It also gave me the wrong llama. So I want the llama, let's say this one, the 3.2 billion.
Okay.
Okay. Llama should be this. So now at least we're now isolating everything that's going wrong from the beginning, and the more stickler you are with at the beginning and over communicating everything that's wrong, the higher the likelihood that you won't go adrift. Because if you do things piecemeal, oh, this is broken, oh, this is broken, it might hallucinate sometimes and say, okay, I fixed that thing, but this thing's now broken. It's kind of like when you go to a shady mechanic, they fix your oil, but they break something else. You don't want that experience.
Okay, so that's why you want to put like all of the things that's wrong in like one go.
Yes. If you centralizing all the information, especially if they're all thematically the same. So if I think that the user interface looks ugly, I should separate that in a different prompt from the brain. The most important thing is that the brain works. The pretty stuff, you can change on the fly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so last thing I'll say is GPT-4 Turbo Mini should be
called GPT-4o.
Named GPT-4o Mini, not Turbo. So now I'll send this feedback. And now it's going to go through, update, and then this is where I'm going to look right now while it's generating. Okay, Mistral AI Large, XAI Grok. So it looks like it's going to probably do a good job. So now let's do the same test. Let's do hi. Perfect. Let's do hello.
Oh,
amazing.
Now.
Good. Well, let's do Grok. This is a brand new LM, by the way, that just came out from X.com last week.
Yeah. They're all coming up with their own LLMs now.
Yeah.
Tech giants.
So if I say this, amazing. So that's working. Now, whenever you go to coding, you never want to assume that what worked before is still going to work. So we have to go back and test. GPT-4 Turbo, hi. Okay.
And then for me.
Test. Amazing. Wow, that's cute. You can set test receipt. Very nice. The last thing is I'll say test.
Okay, looks like I'm still here, just responding to your text message.
Yeah.
So it looks like all of them are working now.
Yeah, not just that, you pull on a very important thing. It says I'm still here, even so it's maintaining the context of the conversation, even though we're sending like mutually exclusive messages, which is actually super important.
Yes, with different language models, so it's still referencing and being able to read text from before.
Exactly. So now this is working, and you always want to know when it's working. Like I like to make a note for myself that it says I actually copy paste this whole thing and I put it into my notes to let me know when it was working perfectly. Because if you start to now remix, which we're about to do, and do some more cute things with this, things can break very quickly. And it might break to the point where it's not usable, and you're like, I wish I could just go back. This allows you to go back and roll back to a previous version. As you can see here, roll back to a checkpoint. So
Right.
When times are good, keep track of it because you might need to go back to it. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to do to make this closer to the Poe experience is allow me to resend a message I've already sent to a different large language model after I send it.
Just for people who haven't done Poe before, let's just show what that looks like before we.
Yeah, completely. So if you remember here, I said, tell me a joke. And then it says here, here's one for you. And then I clicked on Call 3.5 Sonnet. And what it does is it sends that same initial request to a different LLM to show me what that model would actually output.
Absolutely. Okay, got it.
And then if I click Gemini Pro, then it'll send this initial prompt to a different large language model to simulate that output. So now this will be a battle of me being able to be articulate enough to understand, to communicate that experience.
Okay. And
So
for both, can you also take a screenshot and let it know, like what you're trying to do?
you can.
You can.
Yeah, so you know what? Let's do that. So let me start a new chat. And let me just say, tell me a joke. And I'll show the preview of the different models. Okay, so
Right. So let's take a screenshot of this.
yeah. Alright, so I'll paste it here. I'll say, great job. Positive encouragement. I want to now add a feature. And this is actually a small subtlety, but it's important. It's nice to be explicit in saying that you want to add something versus change. So it doesn't change what I did before, it only adds to augment this new feature. Sometimes in the past, like in the past 2 weeks, I've used this all the time. I'll say, oh, can we make it do this? And it will change the entire direction of the app and everything will break, except this brand new shiny thing will work.
Right. Okay.
So great job, and I want to add a feature that allows me to resend the last message I provided to a different LLM to simulate how that same message would yield a different result with that new LLM. Reference the screenshot I attached to see what I mean. When I send a message and receive a response, it should allow me to resend that original message, but to the different models we have access to right now. That's my best shot at explaining it, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Let's see if it gets it. And if not, like we can always roll back and then do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this makes coding quite easy. I mean, this is great, Mark. This is really awesome.
So far, so good. So here's our first Bolt error. Sometimes Bolt will time out, and it'll say unknown response, and it'll show your message from the beginning. You just have to resend this, and then it should be able to execute it the second time. So right now it says I'll add a try with feature that allows resending that last user message to different models. I'll add buttons that appear after each assistant to let you quickly compare responses across models.
This is super cool.
And one thing here that later on I'm going to tackle is you see GPT-4.0. I want it to be GPT-4.0 because I have that severe OCD, but that's a later problem. That's not a now problem.
Yeah. So it's like even when it's generating, as you're looking at the code, you can start correcting it. But as you're looking at the code, like you can download this code and then deploy it on DigitalOcean, deploy it on the Replit. If you wanted to, you don't have to deploy the code directly, right?
Correct. You can also click on Open in Stacks Blitz, and this will open a separate tab that gives you access to the raw source code that you can do whatever you want with it.
Got it. Wow. And Bolt.new right now is free, right?
It's free for a certain amount of usage. So once you, I don't remember the number of messages. Once you go past a certain limit, you have to pay $20 a month for
Which
X million tokens. Yeah.
Yeah, which is still like super.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's give this a go. Let's use GPT-4.0 Mini. Let's say hello.
Ooh.
Okay. Hold on. Looks good. Too good to be true. I've gone through too much pain to assume this works. So let me do this. Wow. Okay. So let's do Rock. Okay. Let's do Mistral.
Oh. Oh my god.
Amazing. I'm losing track of what I said. 2 before. Did I do llama? I did llama. Okay, so it keeps saying hello.
And it has a context too. It's like llama is like we're having a very repetitive conversation. You're so amazing.
Amazing. We are literally. This is a multi-million-dollar product that we're very quickly emulating. So I actually don't have any negative feedback. So.
I mean, the only feedback I would have is to have more, like all of the language models kind of in a drop down, and instead of just like 6 of them, having like the entire list of them.
This is pretty.
So I don't mean like when you do try again, but I mean like at the top you see like the second like you see where it says at the top where it says GPT-4o Turbo. Yeah. Exactly where your mouse is right now. Yeah, like having that as a drop down and having more than 6 options, that would be my only feedback here.
Okay. So, let's be nitpicky. One, I'm gonna fix this GPT-4o business and this whole GPT-4 Turbo thing because this Turbo is not Turbo. If you go to constant, also, it would be nice if it showed a typing icon while we're waiting for the API response. So
Yeah.
Job. Latest feedback. Okay, go ahead.
And I'm just gonna say, and these LLMs, like you might think that they don't have feelings, but I think when you give it positive reinforcement, it actually does a better job.
Yeah, there were studies that for a while, this was patched. At least there was a phase last year where if you offer ChatGPT a $50 tip for doing a good job, it did actually try hard. Now, that's been patched ever since then, but that would be nice. Alright, cool. So, one thing that Bolt tends to like a lot that I noticed is it loves lists. So I'm just going to go the same way it did. One, GPT-4 Turbo should be named GPT-4o with an O, not a 0. GPT-4o Mini should be 4o, not 40. Let's add a typing animation whenever the user is waiting for a response. 4, this is your feedback at the very top. Could we make the model selection into a drop-down instead of laying it out across the top?
And I would like to see like a dozen language models that they can choose from instead of 6.
Yeah, what we'd have to do is we just need to go back to Open Router and decide which one those are.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good with this for now.
Yeah. I mean, this gets the point across. So, let's do... I think that's pretty much everything. Let's do that.
Yep. That's good. Like, it'd be good to see, like, 1O in there, etc. But that's something that's a easy add. Just one more prompt.
Yeah, you know what? We'll add 1O just for fun.
Okay, after this one.
Yeah.
But just to compare contrast, Mark, from the last video we did on Replit Agent, what are some of the pros and cons of Replit Agent versus Bolt.new, if you were to summarize? Yeah.
Cool. Bolt.new is a way better trained on frameworks that scale. So like I said before at the beginning of the video, Replit Agent deploys right now on something called Flask, which is, one, it's hard to make it look beautiful, it's hard to make it hyper-functional, it's hard to collect user responses as well, and then Bolt is working with what a lot of developers actually use, which is like a JavaScript, TypeScript, React background and front end, which is why we can get to pretty things seemingly way easier than before. That's number one. In terms of pros for Replit, I'd say deployment is easier there because they have a better infrastructure for deployment. You can make it really scalable from the jump and have multiple users from the initial get-go as well. So I'd say easy to deployment, Replit wins. Bolt will win in terms of the ability to build higher production apps, at least right now. Really overnight this could change, but as of this moment, if I had to choose one of them to build you a POC for my team, it would be this one.
Yeah. And it's just amazing how quickly this field is like innovating. Like it was only like a month ago that we were like, oh my god, this is the latest breakthrough in tech, and then a month later we have another breakthrough.
Exactly. Every 4 days is a breakthrough.
Yeah, but this is honestly very exciting. Let's see if this works. Okay, so we already got the drop down.
So we got the mini, we got 4.0, so that's good. Let's just test that it still works. How are you? Alright, so we also got that typing thing. This is nice. Let's do Claude 85 Sonnet. Amazing. Alright.
Let's try llama.
Let's try llama.
Oh, not functioning properly.
Wow, it's as if it knows what we're trying to do. It's omnipotent. Now, one thing here, the disconnect. So, I've switched it, right? If I switch this to something different and I say now hi, it should talk to Grok. This is working properly.
Right. Oh, it does.
Perfect. Amazing. I expected a bigger struggle than this.
Yeah.
Amazing. So let's close this out. And what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna close this up to show you how we can wrap this up, and then how you could try to deploy it to actually try to use it outside your browser. And then the last thing is we'll show 2 different apps that I already put together before this. That took some time just to give you a sense of what else is out there, what other use cases could you build, etc.
Okay.
So let's go to here and let's see what Open Router calls O1, because Open Router has a different name than the actual name of the actual APIs. So let's do, where's the preview?
I see it. That one you're on right now.
Alright. Any other ones on your wish list while I'm asking?
Okay, so we have llama, we have perplexity. So we can add perplexity as well.
Let's give that a go.
And I think there was 2 for Claude, so there was Claude Sonnet and
So they have 3.5 Sonnet and 3.5 Haiku now.
okay, and then Opus was the one before.
Opus is $1 billion, so we won't use that one.
Yes. So let's try, because I didn't Haiku, let's add in
Perplexity.
And perplexity.
Perplexity, there we go. Do this one.
Perfect.
Well, this one says Sonar Huge. This is going to cost me $1 million. Let me just look for the little one. There we go. Sonar Small.
Okay, perfect. And what was the one by Google? Gemini. Can we add in Gemini as well?
Okay, sounds good. Let's do Gemini. Do you care which version? Flash or non-flash?
The cheaper one.
The cheaper one. Okay, gotcha. Alright, last thing I'm going to say is everything else is perfect. Don't change anything else. And I'm just emphasizing this again because I've been burned in the past using Bolt where you just make one change and it thinks you're changing the entire roadmap and everything just breaks and then you slam your head against the wall. So let's avoid that. We'll send this.
Wow. It's like we got a functioning chat. And just so everyone knows, I'm going to include this in my Whiteboards software so that they can actually chat with it. So Whiteboards is an all-in-one platform and you can get started for free. Put the links in the description. That allows you to write, generate images, audio, video, all-in-one platform. So Mark, we have open here the editor, which is kind of like a ChatGPT meets Google Doc, where you can write things. If you click on the 2-star icon, that's right beside rewrite. Yeah, you can make it longer, shorter, change the tone, etc. And then you can also generate images, Flux, Stable Diffusion, it's like an all-in-one platform that makes it easy to do things. If you click go back to dashboard, you can see all the things you can do. You can chat with the PDF, you can analyze your articles for SEO, speech to text, text to speech. So it's an all-in-one platform that does everything. So give it a try. The link will be in the descriptions, and we're also going to add in this feature that you just saw here onto Whiteboards as well. So
there you go.
You're seeing it live, yeah. Like this stuff, like you can actually start making new software and start making money with it. And I'm sure I'll have Mark back on again and even talk about the business side of things and how this actually did and what other improvements we made to it. You can follow along with our software journey here. Subscribe below. Okay, anyway, go on.
Amazing. So let's just make sure that Perplexity works. That's the one I'm most curious about. So if I ask it a question about today, it should be able to answer it because it's current. So if I say, what is the date today? Okay. Okay, so let's double check this. What sports are we playing right now? Is the NBA on? No. What are the latest sports scores?
Probably just need to change the label because I wouldn't know what Sonar Small is.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, so we'll change that. But it looks like, yeah, this is all from yesterday. So that is good. So that's working. Flash. Tell me a joke. Amazing. And then we added 01 preview, so this will take like 7 business days to come back to us, but what is the meaning of life? Now, only because I've used preview in the API before, preview takes a long time because it quote-unquote thinks behind the scenes. So one thing I'm curious about is how this will deal with its long wait time for that response. Will it break? We'll be able to adapt to it. So obviously these things are more advanced level to like get this intuition. But while you're adding things, there's certain test cases that jump out to you while you're going through it. So let's do what is the meaning of life. This should take double the time that we just took with Flash. One preview here.
The meaning of life.
All good. And it's a long response too, so this is awesome. So I'm gonna just we'll finish this part up by saying last 2 things. I'll say again, they are aesthetic, non-functional. Change 01 preview again because of my OCD to 01 preview. Change sonar on the front end to display as perplexity. Now, if you're wondering why I said those words on the front end,
Yeah.
make sure that it doesn't go back and change the model's name to perplexity because then it'll break. I'm hyper communicating and over communicating to lower the likelihood of hallucination.
Right.
Amazing. So we'll just do this last thing and then we'll try to deploy it and then I will show you all a couple different apps that we put together.
Perfect.
Okay, model, I'm just gonna look here. There we go. Perplexity, the biggest thing. I just want to make sure. What is today's date? Amazing. So that's all working. And 01 preview, since we changed the name, I want to make sure that works too. I'm just gonna say hi. It'll take 6 business days maybe for hi.
And by the way, I love Open Router. You just pay for one key and then
One and done.
wow. Perfect.
Yeah, very underrated software, so highly recommend you look into it. Also, it alleviates you from the headache when a new thing comes out from a new vendor. They don't pay X amount per month, and you have like different wallets or different API keys. It helps just centralize everything. Cool. So this works. Awesome. So let's click deploy. Sometimes deploy is buggy. It deploys on something called Netlify, and if it works, you'll get a URL that you can start using immediately. If it does not work, then you'll just usually have to re-click it.
So something like Replit, like they started off as a deployment company for software developers. So that's like what they're known for. So I guess like one worry that people may have is can both of you deploy and scale the same way that something like Replit can? Because if you put something on Replit, like you know it's gonna be safe to scale because that's what they're known for.
Yeah. So deploy, yes. Scale, depends what your application is, how many users, etc. Like personally, I wouldn't deploy on Netlify or an entire audience to build. Like you said before, something like DigitalOcean, something like Replit. That's where I feel more, at ease, or AWS or one of the cloud providers. This will actually scale. So this is the deployment link, and then we'll just test and just say, here, tell me
A joke.
whatever, a story, a joke, whatever, and
It does it.
it does it. And notice one thing, I did not ask it to do this. It's generating the text as it's getting the response back from the API. So it looks just like a production application. Now you can literally take this, share it with whoever, and use it, like, out of the box. Yeah.
And can both one do you access the web in real time? Like, can you just be like, read this link and then do blah blah blah, or it can't access it?
Most of the time I tried it, it did not.
Okay, so you have to just copy and paste whatever that said on that page. Okay, got it.
Exactly. And just to kind of finish up, I'm just going to show 2 other apps put together. One of them was my attempt to build a mini agent storm
So, and then now to just get your imagination, the creativity juices running, Mark will also show you two other apps that he made on Bolt.new, and we strongly encourage you guys to just try it out because it's free. You get a certain number of prompts that you can do for free to create these apps, and you can use these apps for so many different purposes, and it's never been easier than now to create software applications. Like, use it for lead gen. Like, that's probably the lowest hanging fruit. Look at what your business is. Just put in a front page where you collect the name and email of your audience, and then as soon as they sign up, send them to an application like this, and you collect more leads. Or you can use it as an additional revenue source, depending on what the niche is. Just think of ideas that will work in that niche, or just use it as an internal tool to help your team be more productive. Like, literally, the possibilities are completely endless. And so here's another example of a application that Mark made in less than an hour, 2 hours.
This one was 2 hours because I was trying to make it do too much. So
yeah,
I wanted to build like a multi-agent experience where
like a agent swarm.
Yeah, like a mini agent swarm. It's definitely not to that production level, but where I say, like, I want to go to Thailand or I want to go to Malaysia and have multiple agents that specialize in different parts of trip planning help me with that. So if I start off and say, I want...
So this is like multiple agents working behind the scenes, and what they all do is they help you plan your perfect vacation or trip.
Exactly. So I want to go to, Kuala Lumpur. And then I send that. So you have a lead agent that's kind of like the orchestrator that's saying, that's great, it's a vibrant city, do you have specific interests there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If I switch gears and say, I need to book flights there, right? So now all of a sudden it invokes the flight agent that specializes in helping you plan your trip.
Wow.
And if I say, you know what, never mind, I just want to find restaurants to eat there because I'm hungry. Now the cuisine agent is invoked because I mentioned something related to eating and cuisine. So you're able to context switch on the fly, and by no means is this a very advanced swarm, but at least I tried to recreate what it might look like if I wanted to go down that road.
Wow, and just kind of like create your own chatbot software. Like, that's incredible, And then I can see that they all have like their own little icons.
Yeah. I basically went back and forth with it for like 20 minutes to get those to work properly, but yeah. So that's numero uno. This is the second one here. So very basic. Basically, this is before I tried even the second multi-agent. So if I just click refresh here. So I just told them, hey, I want you to have, let me just zoom out, like a floating set of different bubbles that when I hover over, it does a cute animation, and it lets me ask a question to that agent that has a prompt behind the scenes that's trained on that specific part of my business. So if I go to HR and say, how do I have a tough conversation with my direct report, and I say send query, this will actually send it to the prompt that has an underlying logic that says you're an expert at HR, and then it will send it back from the OpenAI API and come back with a response.
Yeah, what I love about this one is that you even got the animations working, like when you, so first of all, the responses work, and like when you hover over like HR versus finance, like it does this spinning thingy, and that's just so cool to look at.
I love that you said that. I have to interrupt you because the way I described it to it 3 times, didn't get it, and I said I want to do a spinny thingy when I hover over the icon. Yeah, I did say that. So, yeah.
Oh my god, spinny thingy is a technical term now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the whole framework around spinny thing.
Yeah, and so you can kind of like there's so many applications for this. Like, let's say if you want like just a virtual CFO, for example, and that was one thing that you and I probably talked about like a year ago that you told me that's what you did on Fiverr, where you trained this agent on, I think, relevance, you said, on like the top 20 books on finance or whatever, and then you built like a virtual CFO specifically for that one company because it's trained specifically on the skill set that they needed. So this can definitely be
repurpose into some like internal tools, maybe even connected to OpenAI Assistant, where it knows only the information about your company.
Yeah.
So even for the non-technical team members that you have, they can now take advantage of AI because this is something front-facing for them, and they don't need to learn the nuances of prompting and creating agents and systems, etc.
Yeah, completely. So the biggest thing kind of I'll leave the audience with is this tool is amazing for proofs of concepts. So even if you work in a company or work for yourself and you have your own tech team, instead of trying to explain in words what you're trying to build or what you could build as a team, you can spin up something that even if it doesn't work, let's take out the work, you can aesthetically show what your vision looks like in under 5-10 minutes. Now getting it to actually functionally work is a different story, but you can use this as your new version of a canvas to go from thought to something tangible in your hands to actually show people what your end goal is.
Okay, great. So as we're wrapping up, I hope you kind of can see the variety of what you can do with this. Like in under an hour here, we recreated Whole.com, which is a multi-million-dollar application, as well as internal tools you can use and a travel agent. So just let your creativity run wild and give this a try. And I can't wait to hear in the comments what kind of application you create. Also let us know in the comments what kind of application you want me and Mark to create as well. And be sure to get your free trial to Whiteboards. I just want to say thank you so much, Mark, for coming back onto this channel. Always great to have you. You always have so much great insights to share with everyone. So really appreciate you and really appreciate your time for being here today.
No, thank you for having me, and yeah, hopefully I'll be back when the next big breakthrough comes in the next 3 days that changes everything for the 100th time. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and looking forward to next time.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it needs to be.
There's two types of people who watch my videos and message me. There's the people, and it's not nowhere in between. Either they have fully pushed to the end and it created basically a full app that they love, or they got stuck on like the first few steps and gave up. Once you get the aha moment where you're like, oh, this works, and you realize that like you're in charge, you don't need to ask anyone. Like influencer, you don't need an influencer or a teacher. You just need to ask AI, you need to ask Claude, be like, hey, it didn't work for this. And it might not give you the right answer on the first try, but odds are by the second or third try, like you will will your way to a working app. It's guaranteed. I just think it separates the high agency people and the low agency people pretty well.
Riley, welcome to the show. This is the Startup Ideas podcast where we talk about startup ideas, but we're not necessarily talking about startup ideas today. We're talking about how to use some AI tools to build software, right?
Yeah. It's gotten a lot easier to create websites, whether it's landing pages, all the way on the other side of the spectrum, like creating apps like Notion. I've been creating, I mean, it takes 6 or 7 hours if you like really want to go ham to create something that looks a lot like Notion, but with a full database, storage, and everything. Fully with AI without writing a single line of code.
So basically a $12 billion company, you can clone a lot of how it works.
Well, I'll give Notion credit. I mean, they have a lot of, it's the skeleton of these apps, but like you can remix them, as we were talking before this. Yeah, there's certain apps where I'm like, I wish I had this feature, I wish I had this feature and this feature. I'm like, wait, why don't I just kind of screenshot the app, tell the AI, you know, this is the general, generally the way that you use the app, and then you can just say, but I also want to have these features. And then if you have the grit to push through the errors, because there's a lot of errors once you start dealing with databases, but usually Claude will figure it out, and the more times you do it, the better you will be at like fixing those errors, and you get better at problem solving, just like anything. And you can create some really cool things in like 10 to 15 hours of practice.
And that's what we're going to do today. And by the end of this video, you'll have a good idea, and then you can start playing with yourself and start creating software.
Absolutely. do you want me to just hop into?
Yes.
All right, let's just do this. Okay.
This is a live cooking session. This is like live cooking. You're the chef.
All right, let's do this here. Okay, so I'm gonna share this screen. Has there been any good SaaS ideas that you guys have come up with? I know you do those live sessions. Have you guys thought of anything recently?
Yes. You want me to pull one up?
Sure. I mean, it's like the easiest way to use these tools is if you have some sort of idea in mind. But I guess without an idea in mind, I guess I'll talk about what tools I want to talk about today. So this right here is V0. So this is going to be, this is front end, and it's using Next.js, which I literally have not coded. 50 days ago, I had never coded in my life. So that was like the first day I found Claude artifacts, and then I started plugging that code into Replit. But what V0 does is it lets you create these really cool front ends that look amazing. And what we can do is we can say, I want to create an app that, help me out here. What do you?
Let's do something. Let's do a SaaS app. Let's do like one of those faceless video app creators. Can we do something like that?
Okay. Yes. That's harder, but yeah. What about like an app that took your transcript of one of your videos, divided them into startup ideas, and then made like a presentation out of them?
That sounds amazing. Okay. Let's do that.
Okay. So this is where you kind of look at the shell, right? We're not going to, on V0, we're not going to be able to add any AI features because that's all going to be done on the back end. So let's think about layout. So like, what types of things would you want if you were to talking to someone on your podcast about startup ideas? What would you want to know about them? So like, you have just like the idea. You have, I guess, like market.
How big it is, how small it is. I like, for me, what's important is to know what are the other big audiences, internet audiences and communities in that space. So that just gives me more ideas.
Okay, so I guess let's just call it internet audience. And then the idea is just the main startup idea. The market will be market description.
Yes.
And then market size. And we can start with that because we can always add to it. But I think this is a good start. So I want you to create let's call it a presentation card. A presentation card or slide, as if it was going to be in a pitch deck about a startup idea. And let's just say, make it a really slick design with cool, subtle animations.
Could you say flat design? Shh, don't tell anyone. But I've got 30 plus startup ideas that could make you millions. And I'm giving them away for free. These aren't just random guesses. They're validated concepts from entrepreneurs who've built $100 million plus businesses. I've compiled them into one simple database, compiled from hundreds of conversations I've had on my podcast. But the main thing is, most of these ideas don't need a single investor. Some cost nothing to start. I'm pretty much handing you a cheat sheet. The Idea Bank is your startup shortcut. Just click below to get access. Your next cash flowing business is waiting for you. Instead of slick.
Okay.
Slick. Do slick/flat. Flat is a type of design. I just want to see if it knows what that is.
I don't even know. I don't know what that is. I'm curious. I'm no designer. But V0 lets me offload a lot of that. And it also allows me to just like take things that I like. And let's see, we're actually going to see it work in real time. So, see, it's kind of nice. And I like I like this actually.
So what's happening now is it's literally building like the front end for this? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so we can actually see the code right here. So we're going to be using Next.js. I have a template that allows me to very quickly create Next.js apps. So my partner and I, who is a developer, and his main passion is like teaching people how to code. He's been incredibly helpful in teaching me, and so we're building. The most annoying part about coding is what he calls plumbing, where you have to go in, you have to set up all the libraries, and you have to make sure that you're organizing your files in the proper manner. And when I was first starting, that would take me 3 hours just to get to the point where I could put an idea that I had into a website. But we're actually just doing all of that work so that you could start from that exact point where you've done all the plumbing, where you still have all the possibilities. You've just done all the boring work like install the libraries. This V0 it has all of these different libraries already downloaded, which is why it can render this. Normally you'd have to download a bunch of things to do it, because coding is a lot of just libraries and it's kind of boring. But what you can also do on V0 is you can actually say make changes. So like make changes to this card. I want to make changes to this card. I want to have a border around the edges and add light dots in the background as if it's graph paper. Very light and what's the word? Transparent. And I just want to go over the example that you can kind of alter these, and it just edits these live, so it'll look back the one it previously created, and it will create a new one. And so this is a lot like Claude artifacts, but like on steroids.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you see that? If you see those dots in the background, it's kind of a nice touch there, and it added the nice border. And so you can always go back and see. So we can see this one, and you can go back and look at the previous version, which didn't have a border nor those dots.
Can I add one quick thing?
Yeah.
I don't know how to, and I want to see how you prompt this. So on my podcast, I say either an idea is sip or spit. Sip is if I really like the idea, like Startup Ideas Podcast, and spit is if I really don't like the idea. How can we do a prompt so we can show if the idea is sip or spit?
Oh, wow. Okay, we could actually make this useful. Wait, hold on. Okay, what if you had a section of your show where people submitted startup ideas to your show via a text prompt?
Yes.
AI is changing the game for app development. Firebase is here to help. We offer a platform designed to support you throughout your app and business's journey, so you can rapidly build, release, monitor, and optimize apps with Google's latest AI technology. Easily build AI-powered experiences into your apps with speed and safety. Then, launch, monitor, and iterate with AI tools that help you optimize your app's quality and experience. All with assistance provided by Gemini, Google's largest and most capable AI model, helping you to work faster and smarter. Firebase helps you run your app with confidence, deliver the best experience for your users, and get to market quickly and securely, doing what you love. Make your app the best it can be with Firebase.
Can you grow your wealth anywhere, anytime, without the right partner? Imagine expanding your portfolio with investment opportunities globally, while protecting your wealth and legacy. Standard Chartered's unique global network and deep local insights give you unparalleled expertise anywhere. Right now, now's your time for wealth. Join Priority Banking today.
and then it converted it into this, and then it gave you like a toggle where you could either drag it to the right for almost like Tinder for sip or spit, and based on what you do there, then we'll add an animation left for like, we could even add a sound effect too. We could do that, and we could even add little light background music too. Let me think about this for a sec. Okay. See, this is the fun part. This is, I love this process of like coming up with an idea. Now I'm like thinking, okay, what have I done like this before?
I don't know.
And I think I got it. Okay, so let's just describe this. Also, I use voice a lot when I'm making these. So I want to add an evaluation pop-up. And this, I want you to include an icon and just have a placeholder image of a person. And I want this to have, I want to be able to drag this icon to the left, which is spit, and or drag it to the right, which is sip. Sip is positive, spit is negative. Sip should be green, spit should be red. Add a positive animation to the entire card when it gets dragged to spit, and change the color to, change the border color to green, and for spit, change the border color to red. And we can alter these animations too. And this will just take a second to load what I just said. The purpose of this is to evaluate the startup idea so that I can look at idea, drag it in a certain direction, and we can label it as either good or bad, which I call sip and spit. I like to make sure I tell it the purpose, because it will actually use that in the prompt, and it might add to its creativity. So let's just try this. And it might take a few times to get it right, because this one's a little bit more advanced.
That's interesting that you gave it the purpose. Like, you really did treat it like a coworker.
Mm-hmm. Well, it knows what types of animations. It's trained on data. Ooh, what's it doing down here? Okay. Okay, hold on. Is this a drag?
Oh my god.
Wait, this isn't... Make this a slider. Let's just make it a circle for now. I was going to make it your face once we actually make it into a thing. So I want to drag this circle in a direction, and that causes the green or red border. Let's say the slider should be right below the card, and if you drag, actually we'll add that next, should be right below the card. The user should be able to drag it in either direction.
By the way, I'm happy that mistakes are happening right now, because the whole point of this video is for people to learn how you approach problems too.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize how on Twitter and YouTube you see all the highlight reels of people creating amazing things with AI, and you can absolutely do that. Ooh, I like this.
Dude, that's actually amazing.
That's fire. All right, please let me do it. All right, so let's see. Okay. All right, so it says great idea, and then needs improvement. Wait, is there? Oh, you could add like tiers. So like a mini spit, or like pretty good idea, and then really good idea, depending on how far you slide it. You can do that pretty easily. But I like just, it's either a spit, or a sip or a spit. Please change the border color depending on the way, depending on the decision made by the user, and then the pop-up message you have at the bottom should be sip or spit. let me see what happens if we zoom out here. Oh yeah, that's actually really clean. Make the line thicker and the font for sip or spit larger. I'll try that one.
So instead of, I went to computer science school, so instead of writing code, what you're doing is you're speaking English, and then the code is coming out.
I call it composing code. Like you're kind of, you're just kind of guiding it. You're telling it what you want, and you know what things are feasible and what types of things aren't feasible the more you do it. And I think this looks a lot cleaner. What are your thoughts on the line thickness? Solid?
Yeah, it's really nice. I like that it's thick. Yeah.
Okay, and then
boom.
All right, let's just go one more. Now I want to create multiple slides of this. Once a decision is made, it should go to the next startup idea, and then I should make the same decisions on the next one. There should be an animation once I decide sip or spit. Make them positive or negative. Alright, last one. And then we can...
I get nervous, like what are they gonna come up with?
Well, you can always revert. Like, I think you can retry this. I actually haven't used... This is the first day I've used this specific tool, but it's very similar to the tools I have been using. I think you can redo it, so there's not a lot of pressure, unless you're on a podcast. Okay, cool. Let's just try it. Wait, let's click reverse here. Okay, wait, let me reset this, I guess.
And while you're resetting it, I have one small design detail I would like changed. I really like the dots that you have in the back, but I don't find them pronounced enough. Is there anything you can do to help me?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Greg wants the dots less transparent, so have them more prominent. And also, below the sip or spit bar, it has two labels, which is sip and spit. Those should be reversed. They should not... You have the sip on the left and spit on the right. Please reverse those. And the animation's kind of weird, but like, that's okay. We can always fix that later. Because I agree, I think the dots... I love the dot look. I've been using that a lot.
Yeah, it adds a nice amount of texture.
Yeah, like even like diagonal grid lines are fun too. I've noticed that.
I will say, I think knowing how to design or knowing some of the terminology is still going to be super helpful. So, right?
1,000%. Like 1,000%. Taste is everything. And it's since I started doing this, I'm now paying attention to every website. I don't go to a website anymore without thinking like, oh my god, how am I doing this? Or how can I replicate this? Or like, what other tool could I create using this design method? And it's really fun, and it helps you actually like develop your taste for websites and finding cool designs. Because a lot of the best designs, and this applies to video editing as well, it's like below the level of your consciousness. Like you don't notice it unless you're looking for it. And it's fun once you... Okay, now it flipped everything. Okay, Jesus. This actually looks better though. Despite it's off, right? It has sip on the left, spit on the right. So we need to ask for one more change.
Yeah.
Let's just do this and then we can move on. So, sip should be on the right. Spit should be on the left. And I'm just going to screenshot. This is another good lesson, actually. I'm glad this happened, actually. We can screenshot this, and you can actually bring it up, And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw on this. And so I'm literally going to, I'm not going to use any colors we've already used before. And I'm just going to circle these. And I'm just going to say, and then I just screenshot it again. And then copy it. Because it doesn't, if you try and copy that, it doesn't copy. So now I'm just going to paste that image in there. And I'm going to say, you see the labels. Oh, those are the slides. I just realized what that is. Those are the different slides. Like the first one is spit, the second one is... Did you know that? Or am I the...
No,
okay.
No.
Okay. So like,
Dude.
it's what it's doing is, I just realized what it's doing, is it's like a, so once you go spit, or here, you see that it's like, that's your the first one you did, right? So if I go, but it's reversed because it's messed up, so we might, so, okay, actually, okay, sip should be on the right, spit should be on the left. Please.
The Loop Squad is always there. With features like Loop Discover for deals, Loop Goals and Invest for savings, quick loans and overdrafts, plus Loop Flex for buying now and paying later, and so much more, all in one place. It's not an app. It's a lifestyle. Get your own Loop Squad today and simplify your life. Why wait? Loop it.
Switch them. For the ones I've circled in blue, number those and make them gray, no matter what the choice was. Because I think it's kind of confusing when it's like this, or maybe I don't know. But let's just try this. But this is really useful to screenshot, because we can screenshot any website. We can go to any website you think is cool, and literally screenshot it, and then describe like what you should do with it, and you can, in 1 minute, have a working prototype for it. It's not a full app because it's not storing any of the data, but it is a prototype. It's pretty cool. Alright, I hope we get it on this one. Good, so far. Okay, looks good. Now, if we go sip, boom. Now 1 was sip, 2 is spit, 3 is spit, and that's it. Pretty cool.
Pretty darn cool. Pretty darn cool. Quick ad break. Let me tell you about a business I invested in. It's called boringmarketing.com. So, a few years ago, I met this group of people that were some of the best SEO experts in the world. They were behind getting some of the biggest companies found on Google. The secret sauce is they've got a set of technology and AI that can help you outrank your competition. So for my own businesses, I wanted that. I didn't want to have to rely on Mark Zuckerberg. I didn't want to depend on ads to drive customers to my businesses. I wanted to rank high on Google. That's why I like SEO, and that's why I use boringmarketing.com, and that's why I invested in this. They're so confident in their approach that they offer a 30-day sprint with a 100% money-back guarantee. Who does that nowadays? So check it out. Highly recommend boringmarketing.com.
Okay, so now let's have some more fun here. Now we're going to use a tool that has been the most hyped tool since, I don't know, I can't even remember. For those of you wondering, it's called Cursor. And what I do, so I have this template, and you can link it below. We created this template, and we've basically done all the dirty work. So this is Next.js, which V0 is also Next.js. So you can do a lot of the same things. And so that's where I come up with just general ideas about interface. I take a bunch of screenshots, and then I'll give it to Cursor to come up with the actual application. I'll show you guys here that I actually have, let's go to my other account. I've set up, before this episode, I've set up a backend, or a database storage and authentication. So signing into Google and everything that you would need to actually turn it into an app, If you also want to gather emails or gain users, that's all part of this template. I don't know if we'll get there today, but what I do with Replit, so this is Replit, this is what we run the front end on. This is how we deploy the application. And we basically connect Cursor up to this because Cursor is significantly harder to deploy apps. For beginners, Replit makes taking whatever you've created and putting it on the internet with a domain that you can share, right? I can share my domain with Greg, and he can open the site and use the site and sign in. Or I can go to Namecheap, buy a domain, and I'll show you that process. It takes like 10 seconds, and it's hosted directly on Replit. And so like $20 a month or something, you can host a website and get that, and Firebase is free until you reach like a certain amount of users. So it's very, very cheap now. There's like no excuses to not get like an MVP up.
And V0, what's the cost of like what you did? What are we talking?
V0 is either 15 or $20 a month or something. My AI budget is over $1,000 a month. So like I lost track of the tools. But if you compare that to a front-end designer, right? $15 a month, right? What's the hourly rate of a solid designer? Probably hundreds of dollars per hour. To me, it's a no-brainer. So this is Replit. What we need to do is we need to connect it to Cursor. I don't believe I've done that yet. So I'm actually going to close out of the project I was working on before and open up a new window. And we're just going to do this really quickly. For anyone who wants to use this template, this will actually be cool. You can just open the template and you're going to hit Use Template, and this will take you exactly to this page. Then you're going to go, then what you're going to do is we're just going to open up secrets. I think I've already done this, but you'll have to do this as well. And then we're going to also open up SSH. And I have more videos on this if I'm going too fast. But basically, what you need to do is you need to go to Keys, and we're actually just going to put this aside for now. So we're going to leave it open with this Keys tab. In Cursor, you're going to press this button down here to open up the terminal. You're going to press Command K. We're going to type generate an SSH key for Replit, name it Replit, and copy the public key to my clipboard. This seems scary because it is. I still don't fully understand what I'm doing, but this is how you set it up. You're going to click on whatever it generates right here, right after it, enter, Y, enter, enter. That automatically copies this SSH key that you then add right here. I'm going to name it SIP. Then I'm going to hit add key. Then I'm going to hit connect. I'm going to copy this connect manually key, and we're going to hit open with SSH. We're going to paste it here. We're not going to hit enter. We're going to press add new SSH host, and we're going to paste it in right here and hit enter. We're going to click the top one, click connect, click continue, and then we're almost there. You only need to pay attention to this if you actually want to use Cursor. But Cursor is by far the most fun tool I've ever used. It is the best software I've ever used in my life.
So you're going to want to pay attention.
You might want to try it. Okay, so then you're going to click on this. This should match the name of the project, which it does, SitPod. And we're going to hit OK. So now they're synced, right? The template that I made with Anj, and he put in the heavy lifting, he's a developer. Replit makes it very easy to share templates and makes it very easy to deploy. So you can very quickly download it, and you can then write code and create stuff with it. The editor on Cursor is a lot better. So we're basically connecting Replit and we're connecting Cursor. Now we've done that. Now we're gonna open up the files that we need here. So in source, app, and we're just gonna hit page.tsx, and this is basically the home page of this template. And now we can use the composer, which is the feature that is why Cursor is going so viral. This basically allows us to edit multiple pages at once. And so we can then come here and say, and we're actually just now building this out, so I'm not fully confident this is going to work, but I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to say, I'm going to just say this is a Next JS app trying to think of how we should do this. Okay, let's do this in order here. So I'm going to create this Next.js app, and I want you to, I just don't know how we want to start. Like, when should we add the AI features to, I'm just going to start off, I want you to take inspiration from, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this paths, so chat.md. I'll explain this after I do it, actually. We've used the template to create apps, and when we do that successfully with a certain prompt, we add it to the project files so that other people can come here and use inspiration from the files that we've used. And so the end game of this would be a blank template where you can create anything, but there's kind of 30 paths you can go down of different types of apps, whether it's note-taking, basic chat app. And so let's just say I want you to take inspiration from ChatMD, and let's create a basic chatbot where the user will put in a startup idea, and you will output the idea in, let's go to B0 real quick. Let's just screenshot this, copy this, nope.